The views, information, or opinions expressed during the Seeds of Wellbeing series are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, or funders, and any affiliated organizations involved in this project. Welcome to a Seeds of Wellbeing Voices from the Field podcast featuring voices of Hawaii agriculture producers for Hawaii agriculture producers. These podcasts are made possible by a grant from the University of Hawaii College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, also known as CTAHR, and the Seeds of Wellbeing, or SEL project, and is supported by a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and the Hawaii Department of Agriculture.
Aloha and welcome back to the Seeds of Wellbeing podcast. Joining us today on Voices from the Field is Alex Wong. Aloha, Alex. Welcome. Thanks so much for being here today. So great to see you. How are you doing?
Aloha. I'm doing good. I'm in the middle of moving right now. I'm moving residences and my whole life, my business, Kauai farm planning. Luckily, I'm able to stay on Kauai, but man, moving is such a hassle, especially when you grow plants and you farm and you have to relocate your entire nursery. It's takes a lot of thinking and execution, and anyway, I'm
Lots
in the
of
middle of
advanced
that right now.
planning too, I could imagine.
Yeah.
Are you
As
switching
much as you
climate
can. I mean,
zones?
I am. I'm going from the south side to the east side. A little bit higher elevation. I'm not sure about the rainfall yet and the humidity, but in the line of what I do, those things make a big difference with my type of crop. But thanks for inviting me. This has come full circle now, hasn't it?
Yeah, this is full circle. Thanks for being here. It's nice to have you back in this capacity. You've served on the Seeds of Wellbeing project for over a year, almost 2 years, I believe. So it's really nice to have you back here, and we're excited to hear some of your perspectives. Kauai farm planning, you mentioned that. Tell us a little bit more about your business.
Okay, so Kauai farm planning, it's the amalgamation of everything that I've studied as a student and everything that I've studied as a resident in the great state of Hawaii. Living in that matrix, also as a human being and a local resident living in the Kingdom of Hawaii, that's a different thing altogether. And so it's a combination of my anthropology background, my political economics background, my GIS and geospatial analysis geography background, my background as somebody who did archaeology and someone who studied Hawaiian archaeology a little bit at West Oahu in Kapolei, and Hawaiian studies at West Oahu Kapolei under Kumu Leilani Basham and Ross Cordy, archaeologist and anthropologist. Also, this is like the inclusion of my experience in agriculture, growing up as a kid in agriculture and around agriculture, and also in agriculture as a professional here in Hawaii. I've worked for the the soil water conservation districts here on Kauai. And after that, I went to the county and I worked for the planning department. So I worked on the other side of the counter for all those people, property owners, developers, architects, engineers. Like when you got to get permits, and go through the county process, I was on the zoning side. as opposed to the building and public works side. So taking all that knowledge and also my passion for culture and social equity, kind of bring that all together, and we create Kauai Farm Planning. So Kauai Farm Planning, my goal is to help every property owner, including the state and the county, to utilize and maximize the full potential with an agricultural lens. Doesn't matter if it's on ag zone property or not. We can do it in urban zone property and residential areas and commercial areas as well. But instead of just landscaping, grass and your usual suspects, right? To grow crops and consumable plants and food, consumable and also potentially scalable and sellable, in order to pay for your own rent or mortgage. That's the main goal. Smaller goals that I try and hit before that is just pay for miscellaneous utilities and monthly expenses by agriculture. Just no matter how small or how big, every property has monthly expenses, right?
Right.
And so if we could just start off with farming by covering those costs, the anticipated regular costs, we'll go from there, right? Just breaking even, we'll go from there. And then we can talk about profit after that. But every farmer's first financial goal needs to be just meeting your bottom line, covering all your costs and breaking even, because that enough in farming is hard.
Do you find that that's not already a farmer's startup goal to break even?
No. That's the farmer's goal, but the problem is the farmer starts in the hole. The matrix, the system is rigged against farmers, and I don't care who has, oh, but we have grant money, we have this and that. The system itself is rigged against local farmers. The only farmers who the system is set up for is the corporations. Corporate level farming, that's subsidized by the government. Small scale farming, family farming, that's subsidized to the extent of pretty much just grant money. That's it. The farmer has to carry the financial burden of essentially everything else. And then with the retailer, once they get it, they upcharge it. And their profit is just simply by having a retail, final destination. But, the retailer doesn't do hardly any of the work. They don't even have to go pick it up for the most part. It gets delivered in most cases. Yeah. So farming, you have to be super precise and super efficient in your whole organization and your whole execution. And if you fall out of that line, like, there's no buffer for you. It's a very small room for error, especially in Hawaii when there's so many unpredictable factors. The weather, the high cost of living, right? The fluctuations in costs, like for gasoline, oil, right?
Right.
Any sort of machinery, equipment, like that stuff fluctuates. Cost of lumber fluctuates when you have to build anything. Like, farming is expensive. And so my role now has become, let's take all those factors that affect us, not just the factors that affect the cultivation of plants and animals, but the factors that affect our entire supply chain and the culture and the place that we live. Those things matter too for your small business, especially farming.
It's like everything is interconnected. Yeah. It's all relevant.
Exactly. And those things get overlooked, right? When we talk about helping farmers, we don't talk about housing. We just talk about, what do you need for the farm? We don't look at the rest of their life, that it completely revolves around cultivation, like keeping plants and animals alive. And that's a very hard thing to do, because we live in a society now where nobody knows how to farm. It's reversed. It used to be civilization was built on the backs of farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've somehow flipped everything on its head, and farmers don't get no respect no more. Um, just like teachers, right? It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a profession and an occupation, and it's a labor of love and passion. People don't get into the farming business. I mean, they don't get into farming, you know, at a personal level to make exorbitant amounts of profit. That's not how it's done. I mean, corporations they try to get into agriculture because they think that they can make more money because they're a corporation and they can automate things and have the economies of scale. But the fact is that um, farming is it's unless it's done locally, right? Unless the carbon footprint remains in um, a single geographic area, right? As long as you're not exporting um, ridiculous things like trying to send fish to Las Vegas, Nevada, right? Or anything grown in California to the Midwest, right? Or the East Coast, like farming is not sustainable right now,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's done local. It's the earth is not flat like Milton Friedman had wrote.
So let's talk
And
a little bit more about the economic structure. I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. You have so much insight, so I'm excited to tap in. So, our current economic structure seems to maximize globalization. And,
right.
There are some benefits to being able to export your crops to meet demands where there wouldn't otherwise be a strong demand. But can you tell us a little bit more about some pros and cons between globalization and localization of food crops, just so we have a better understanding of what you mean when
Yeah.
you
I
say,
mean,
like focus on local? What is that again?
yeah. So the idea is like keeping the money in the family, keeping the money in the family. That's like the heart of what
Creating
local
generational wealth.
economics generation. Well, not just that, but like what I consider my family is my community, right? When I talk about economics. So as long as Killer Mike, the rapper, has this really stupid show on Netflix called Trigger Warning with Killer Mike. And in one episode, he tries to live black for like 5 days, meaning he could only purchase things from black owned businesses. And he couldn't do it. He
Hmm.
couldn't do it, right? And that idea, like every time he says black or African American in that episode, you just substitute the word local, trying to buy local. Can you do it in Hawaii? Can every transaction that you have every day of the week, right? Are you supporting a local business or a local producer that produced that item? The answer, for the most part, especially on Oahu, is no. And
Yeah,
so
that
that's what I'm saying about keeping the money in the family. How long can we keep a dollar bill in the local community on Kauai, like for example, on this island, before that dollar gets up and leaves Kauai? That's the
mhm.
grassroots economy. And the same thing needs to happen with food. We shouldn't be growing things and sending them to California, or we shouldn't be growing things and sending them, around the world until we can feed ourselves first. And
Mhm.
so, when I got into farming professionally, me farming on Kauai, and my father, he quickly like questioned that. He said, "Why are you on Kauai? Why are you farming on Kauai? The market is so small. Like we got less than, on any given day, right? Around 80, 75, 80,000 people on Kauai, right? Not including the tourists. I'm talking about residents." So he's like, that you have such a small market, like you're not going to make any money. And I told him, well, first of all, Kauai has not achieved feeding itself yet. All the restaurants, all the houses, like they all consume food grown somewhere else
Hmm.
in the mainland or like international, like South America, Central America, um, New Zealand, Australia, China, right? The food's flying in or being shipped in on a boat. And so when we purchase that food, that's our money getting up and leaving Hawaii. That's our local residents watering and feeding someone else's economy is what that is. That on top of the carbon emissions from for transporting that food, it's ridiculous. And so yeah, the first goal here on Kauai is to for all of us local Kauai farmers, everyone farming on Kauai, like I try and tell everybody, I preach, don't look at each other as competition. When you see another farmer in the state of Hawaii or another farmer on your island, they are not competition. They're not competition until the entire island is pretty much 100% local grown in terms of going to the restaurants and going to the store for buy food. Like until it's 100% local source, you're not competition with each other. Even at the local farmers market, you may look like you're competing for the same um, population, the same market, the same people, right? Who are perusing the farmers market, who come every week and buy from the farmers market. But the fact is that that's just a little bubble of the economy. Once you cover that demographic, you need to step outside of the farmers market and realize there's the rest of the island you got to feed that's not showing up to the farmers market. So the
is
first
there
goal
a
is feed.
communication between farmers and who's growing what and what demands they're producing? I used to work in a produce department at a health food store, and there were times that we would have an influx of a particular crop, for instance, an herb. Let's say they brought in a bunch of everybody's growing basil and rosemary, and we'd have to turn away farmers because we'd have a surplus often of particular crops. So how do we prevent that? Because those are issues if we're looking for, to produce 100% local. How do we make sure that we're producing the crops that we need to meet the demands for and not producing too much of one particular crop?
So it's about the supply chain, right? And having contingency plans. You have plan A, right? If this outlet is already at capacity, then I have my second outlet. I have plan B, plan C. Um, in business, you teach you got to have at least three outlets, at least three, right? In order to have a sustainable business. If
Mm-hmm.
as a farmer, you have to have three steady clients that you service weekly or bi-weekly,
And there's
every other
enough
week.
retailers out there that you can have, those contingency plans,
So
right?
what I recommend for farmers and for me, like the farmers market is great. The farmers market is great because that's where the community is seen interacting with the farmers. That's where it's basically farm gate almost. You're giving the money directly to the farmer. There's no middleman to take their cut. Yeah, the farmers market. Also, farmers market is good because if you want a lot of something, like for me, if I run out of bananas in my backyard, right? Um, because I eat a lot of bananas, choke bananas, like because I eat smoothie almost every day. So I get bananas in my freezer, right? And so when I go farmers market, if I'm out of bananas and I don't have a rack ready on the tree, I'll take 30, $40 to the farmer's market and I'll hand it to a farmer and be like, give me as many bananas as I can get for $30 or $40.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them I'm gonna make smoothies, I'm gonna freeze them. So they give me like everything that's ripe, everything with the black spot starting, like they give me all of that because they know it's gonna be bad by
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow morning. So like I do love the farmers market, but in terms of being a business as a farm, I highly recommend restaurants and food trucks first as your main clients. And then, like you were saying, sometimes you get jammed up because a restaurant or a food truck, they'll come into some produce, right? Whether it's from like Waihata or Asaki's or Cisco Foods, they're gonna get their cheap stuff that's imported from the mainland that you can't compete with because it's $1.50 a pound, and you're gonna be stuck with like 10, 20, 30 pounds of something this week.
Mm-hmm.
What is taught at Go Farm is that you always need to have a practice that will extend the shelf life of your produce
Value
or
added
whatever it
products.
is. Value added. Yeah, if you can jar it, if you can pickle it, if you can salt it, if you can dry it. Um, for me, like we gotta grow the staple crops, yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
kalo, number one. So
Mm-hmm.
poi is a great way to extend shelf life. Just the corm itself of kalo lasts for a long time if you keep it in a cool, dry place. But besides poi and besides, just steaming it real quick and poke and just pretty much or do some sort of pot. Yeah, I like to flash steam in the Instapot and then cut into fry shape and throw that in the freezer as fries.
It can also be ground into a
So
powder, right? For flour
yeah, you
or
can,
snack,
yeah, or yeah, dried and
dried.
rehydrated with water. But yeah, like we need to just focus on stuff that is versatile, flexible, and has high like protein, calorie, and nutrition content. And kalo is that thing that what the Hawaiians eat. As long as there's a demand, yeah, as a farmer, grow it. But you also have to balance like what is worth your time growing. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm not gonna get out of bed to grow anything for $1.50 a pound. That's not happening, right? So for me, I got to do high value crops, and that's salad. Everybody needs salad greens.
Mm-hmm.
Like there shouldn't be any flown
Reason to
in
buy a
or
Costco bag from anywhere.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, sure, it's $5 a box or $5 a bag, but you got to consider that it's been sitting on a boat for almost a week. So by the time it hits your refrigerator, your ice box at home, it's it's starting to go bad.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy locally grown salad greens, like it'll last a month as long as you keep it in the ice box. It'll last a month. Just hit it with some ice water, just dunk it real quick, hit it with the ice water, shake it off, let it dry for a little bit, and then stuff it back in a plastic bag in the ice box, and you're good for like a month with local grown lettuce.
Mm-hmm.
The basil, like who buys imported basil? Basil doesn't
Pesto,
last
for
a
that
day
matter. I mean, you go to a
Yeah,
grocery
yeah,
store and
but
you spend $13 on a jar of pesto.
basil is the easiest thing to grow. Like, first of all, everyone should be growing in their backyard, but yeah, local grown basil. You should not
Right.
be buying imported basil. Any sort of like leafy green onions, like none of that should be imported at all.
So, in addition to extending shelf life through value added products, another challenge we have here is the way we eat. It's
Hmm.
for many communities and our local community, having the crops that are relevant to our body, our kino, that feed our kino, are important, and that's how we can change the dynamic of becoming a local 100% local agriculture produced community. But when we have an influx of people that are not from here that eat a different way, the demand for foods are different, and so that changes what's available in our store. So how do we change that dynamic?
Well, okay, like we've as a society we've gravitated towards convenience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And overindulgence. Okay, I'm not Filipino, but I'm gonna pick on them right now. Like when we think of Filipino food, we think of what you get at a Filipino restaurant, right? The lechon, the tinono, the pork adobo,
Mm-hmm.
right? The blood meat, the dinuguan, all that stuff is like you can't eat that in excess. If you eat all that stuff, you're gonna get gout. And so we're seeing a lot of gout with local people, especially Filipinos and Polynesians, a
Right.
lot of gout because of the
Yep.
shellfish and the pork
Yep.
and the red meat. And what we need to realize, especially with cuisines like Hawaiian and Filipino cuisine, is like when you live a normal life, you don't eat lechon every weekend or every other day. That's the celebration food. You eat that for special events and holidays, like maybe 2, 3 times a year, maybe. You cannot be eating lechon every week or like kalbi, like talking about local Chinese, Japanese, and Koreans. Like you cannot be
Healthy steak.
eating, yeah, these things that in excess that you only eat on special occasions,
Hmm.
usually, right? If you're a normal person.
Or
But nowadays we
traditionally,
work,
yeah.
yeah, nowadays we work, the day job, the matrix job, and then we go buy our food in a transaction. And if we're gonna go eat out, right, it's the plate lunch. It's the
Yep.
meat, gravy, two scoops rice, mac salad. And that is not, first of all, it's not healthy, right? That kind of diet causes obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and my own family included, right? They're townies and they eat like that, and like that's why like we have cancer and we have all these health problems is because we don't eat vegetables like how our grandparents ate vegetables. So when we talk about a local diet, I'm not talking about plate lunch.
Hmm.
I'm talking about what our grandparents
Kalo.
ate in the plantation. Yeah, or before plantation, the
Hmm.
Hawaiians ate. But yeah, a lot of vegetables. My grandmother, she cooked with a lot of vegetables.
Yep.
Cabbage. Locals eat cabbage all day. Cabbage and kimchi, right? Shredded cabbage under the fish, under the ahi, right? Under the fried fish, not just under poke and under sashimi, but cabbage under everything. Cabbage in soup, right? Cabbage in saimin, cabbage in ramen, right? Cabbage. We should all be growing cabbage. Like we should not be buying imported cabbage. That's fucking cabbage. Oh, sorry. You can bleep that out, but that's cabbage. That's some Kauai pigeon for you right there. Cabbage. That's total cab. It's stupid. Like no, for real. Like locals eat cabbage. But
Oh.
locals gotta be open minded too, right? Salad is good for you. Eat a salad, once a day. Just eat a salad. It'll change your life.
Hmm.
Smoothies, right? Locals love local grown fruit. We should all be growing fruit in our backyard, right? We shouldn't be buying no imported bananas from
Hmm.
Ecuador or Panama or South America or Central America, Mexico. Like, stop importing bananas. Stop
Hmm.
importing avocados. Locals eat avocados, right? There shouldn't be
So,
a single Mexican restaurant or food truck in the state of Hawaii buying imported avocados. Hawaii grows better avocados than California. Our avocados are bigger, butterier, and just hands down better than mainland avocados from
mhm.
Mexico or California. So yeah,
But
I shouldn't be
avocados
seeing a
don't produce
single.
all year around, right? And so part of the convenience aspect has been the convenience of being able to eat whatever, whenever, the convenience of a grocery store. You go in and you can get whatever you want. What are you in the mood for? And you purchase it. But part of the, achieving 100% locally grown agriculture comes with a perspective shift of what do you have readily available, what's in season, what, not having avocados all year round. So what do you do when avocados are in season? What do you do when mangoes are in season? And there are ways, like, greenhouses can produce cabbage all year round, right? There are ways that we can meet demands with certain crops all year round, but there's so many layers to 100% attaining a local 100% local agriculture economy. Where do we start?
Well,
Where are we
that's
starting?
the
I mean, this
hardest
has been
part.
a push for a while, so we've
We
made
need to start
some
with
progression.
like getting the younger generation into farming,
Hmm.
right? Here's the thing. We talked about this life of convenience that we've built for ourselves in the matrix. This life of convenience is convenient, but it makes us soft. It makes our bodies soft and it makes
Yeah,
us soft and up here, our
less
mental.
resilient.
Yes, it becomes less resilient. And, it takes a sort of devotion and dedication to water and feed your plants, right? Like it's kind of funny, but most people, you can drop off your dog or your cat when you go on vacation. You can leave your dog or your cat with your friend, or you can like ask your friend, "Hey, come over, check on my dog, check on my cat." And like 9 times out of 10, you get home from vacation and your dog and your cat still alive. But if you're a farmer or a grower and you ask your friend, "Hey, can you watch my plants while I'm gone on vacation?" 9 times out of 10, you come back and it's dead. There's something about growing plants that's a little bit trickier for people because people don't bother to take the time to practice growing plants.
They also communicate differently. We've become accustomed to the way the dogs and cats communicate to us and their needs, but plants have their own language and the way that they communicate their needs. And a lot of
So
people don't know that. And so that's part of
they
getting the
don't,
younger
and because
generations is the education.
they don't try. They were never
Right.
taught. They don't try. But what it comes down to is the convenience.
Mm-hmm.
And we, as a society today, are spoiled rotten, where we just expect everything instantaneously. It's instant gratification. Instant gratification has killed the individual spirit. It's killed individual discipline and resiliency. Like, we need more self-discipline. You know, we don't see kids with these days with enough self-discipline to maintain focus, to have a conversation physically, face to face with an adult. You know, I teach high school, so I'm not just saying this. Like, I work with teenagers and they're on their phones all the time. Like, their attention span is nothing. And when that's the case with not just our children, our keiki, but our adults, like, how do we expect anybody to have the attention span and the self-discipline and self-control to show up every day to keep their plants alive?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so when we talked about layers, part of the layering of this related back to local agriculture is before a lot of these families, they lived on their plantations, they lived on their farms. It was a family operation. It was a lifestyle. And now we have our families that have to work the 9 to 5 jobs. So they got to put their kids in school. So the kids no longer have that strong foundation that's rooted in that lifestyle. And so, yeah, of course, how are you going to get a high schooler whose foundation is on electronics and distraction and instant gratification? How, there's, how do we do it, Alex? What's the solution?
There's only one way to do it. There's only one way to do it, and it's to teach by example.
Mm-hmm.
The baby boomers gotta step it up before they're done. Like, the baby boomers are retiring now, so they gotta step it up. They're grandparents now. The baby boomers right now are now what my grandparents' generation was to me. You know, they're the kupuna, they're the elders, and they need to step it up because they're the ones who basically bought into this matrix, and they've enabled it with their dollars. They voted with their dollars, and they've fed and enabled this matrix, this machine of convenience that we now have to turn the ship around and paddle upstream against.
Mm-hmm.
And so the baby boomers gotta change their lifestyle now. They got a little bit of the kala. They got, their retirement. They've made it out of the game with their social security intact. They might be the last generation to have that, but they have that little nut that they've saved, right? A lot of the baby boomers, they were able to invest and purchase property, right? So they got the property. They need to set up the next generation, the millennials and the Gen Zers now, for sustainable, culture centric success, right? Family oriented success, community oriented success, rather than continue to just cruise and live the rest of their life, then the last 10, 20 years, just living the American dream, because American dream is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And if we expect the rest of us, the millennials, the Gen Zers, and everybody after that, to have any chance at success and resiliency, the baby boomers got to support us being farmers, and they got to support our lifestyle. We got to make we as individuals and as a community need to make the conscious decision that we're going to live and change our lifestyle and not just suckle from the teat of the matrix, right? And just take what crumbs they're willing to give us, right? But actually create our own wealth, right? Create our own businesses. And so yeah, that's what needs to happen. We need to cultivate more farmers. So that's what Kauai farm planning does is I'm out here trying to farm farmers. I'm out here trying to malama farmers, right? In addition to the plants that I grow, right? And the produce that I support to my community, to my restaurants and my food trucks, right? And myself, really. Right. Because you can't be helping nobody. They tell you got to put the mask on yourself before you put it on your neighbor, right? So I'm trying to grow my own food first. Everybody should be growing their own food first. Put the mask on yourself. Right. Every family should have the designated farmer in the family, in the household. There's got to be at least one person in every local household that knows how to grow plants, right? Who's working actively on the family farm, growing that thing, so that everyone else in the family who chooses to can jump out of their matrix job that they're running like a hamster on the wheel, jump out of the hamster wheel into the family business, right? So that's the other thing Kauai Farm Planning does is I'm a consultant for not just your farm, but for your family business, because I believe that that is the foundation of a grassroots economy, is that every family farm also has a tangential family business. That's the only way to make it. Rather than having two matrix jobs, you should have your farming job and your family business that you contribute to as a family member, right? And if we're all running our own family businesses that service other local people, other residents, and also the tourists, then we
That's how
don't
you
need,
empower communities.
yeah, we don't need the matrix anymore. We're feeding ourselves. We are creating our own wealth with whatever service or whatever good we are producing as a family or as a household, right? Every household should be a cottage business in Hawaii. Every family's home, their property, should produce a product or a service, a good or a service. It shouldn't, no property in the state of Hawaii for owned by a local family should simply be where you sleep and bathe and eat.
Is that realistic for every single family to operate a business operation?
I think it's realistic if we can fix our public education system in Hawaii. I
Just
think if we
public
can teach
education, or would it
children,
also include things like health insurance and housing and,
okay, so we're talking about a transition now. And I'm gonna double down. I'm gonna say, you know, the state of Hawaii does not care about farmers. As it is, they don't care. We have politicians who think they care, but the fact is they themselves have zero experience farming, with the exception of Tim Richards on Big Island. I don't think there's anybody else right now who is a representative or a senator at the state capitol that has any professional experience farming. I think there might be a couple politicians right now whose parents were in agriculture in Hawaii, or maybe agriculture somewhere else in the mainland, but they
and
themselves have zero experience farming.
Tim
And
Richards, he
so,
was a veterinarian. He works with ranchers. Is he a farmer himself? Yes.
oh yeah, well, okay, so livestock, yeah, that's agriculture.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
agriculture. Um, but my point is like we have advocates in the politics right now in Hawaii who say they support farming, but because they have zero experience themselves farming, they don't know how to help produce the solutions to get farming out of the dumpster right now, to get it out of the red. And so when Hawaii says that they care about agriculture, that's bullshit. Our state budget alone reflects that, right? What is it? Less than 1% of the state budget goes directly to farming, to
Yep.
agriculture in Hawaii.
Less
That's
than.
bullshit, right? Yeah. So that's a lie. That's a straight up lie. Hawaii, our government, the state of Hawaii, does not care about agriculture. They do not care, and we need to change that. We need to change that because um, if we aren't growing our own food, that's a resiliency problem. That's a sustainability problem. That's a climate change problem. And if the state of Hawaii and the counties are going to use any of those words, they need to address the food security issue first, right? because
They
they like
developed
to use
this.
those words
Sorry, they
instead
developed the
to push their agenda to develop and to sell
right.
out. That's what the state and the counties are doing right now. The whole sustainability topic and discussion has been hijacked around permitting and development and not around actual community resiliency and food security. So we need to get that straight. And if the state of Hawaii really cares about farmers, then they will subsidize healthcare and housing for farmers. There are zero incentives to being a farmer in Hawaii today. So the state of Hawaii, if they care at all, if our politicians care at all, they need to put their money where their mouth is and subsidize healthcare for farming, because nobody wants to farm, and that's the fact. It's a labor of love. It's a thankless job. And even if you were to give your praises and your thanks and all your gratitude to the farmers, that doesn't pay my rent or my mortgage. I'm sorry, but like, it might feel nice when you say thank you or mahalo, but the fact is that's not paying my bills. It's not paying my mortgage or my rent. And yeah, the state of Hawaii needs to do that. We subsidize tourism in Hawaii. We subsidize military. We need to subsidize food security. And in order to get more people farming, like, I guarantee you, how many Hawaiians and local people will leave their day job, their matrix job, if they and their dependents were given healthcare and housing, they would start farming full time. I guarantee it. Hawaiians would rather be outside on the land than doing construction or working in the hotels and resorts. I guarantee it. Don't even try and argue with that one. Like, we want to talk about culture and where people belong. It's outside. All of us belong outside, growing plants in nature. That's where we all belong. I mean, if you don't want to do that, then yeah, you could work the matrix job. The matrix can keep going, because thanks to you. But the fact is we got to do this ourselves. So we don't need them. We don't need, like, politicians right now, garbage. So unless we teach our youth the right way, with ethics, with morals, with principles, with integrity, and replace our current politicians with them, like, we just got to work around them. We got to work around them because they're not part of the solution. Our politicians today are not part of the solution, and the solution comes from us, from the community, from the individual, from the family. That's where the solutions are going to come from. And the fact is that, like I said, for you to be truly independent, for you to be sovereign, you need to be able to grow your own food, right? Because if you depend on somebody else to feed you, well, you're pretty much giving the power to somebody else to starve you, right? And the fact is that the only true sovereignty, we could talk about Hawaiian sovereignty in the kingdom all we want, but the only true sovereignty is economic sovereignty. Economic sovereignty.
Right.
Otherwise,
And
you
so
are
then
not,
when growing your own food, it's not just a matter of, someone being able to produce their own food. It's all the imports. We have degraded soil conditions. So if you don't have soil, you can't grow your own food. If you don't have the infrastructure to have a hydroponics or an aquaponics or a greenhouse, you're limited. Folks are limited in what they can produce. So I agree that it's ideal that we're all growing our own food, but there's so many other factors that are in play with this for us to reach this goal. And, like you said, it starts with education in the public school systems. It starts with grassroots efforts to have community-based solutions. Yeah, there's so many layers to this.
Okay, I know you gotta go, Alexis, but the last thing I just want to say to kind of wrap up the economics of farming in Hawaii is, are you familiar with MLMs?
Of course.
Yeah,
Multi-level marketing.
Yeah. So I believe that a true grassroots economy in Hawaii, especially in the farming community, especially with our food, is an MLM. Every property, every household, every family needs to think of themselves as an MLM, as its own entity, its own micro corporation that produces food and, from your family business, another good or service. And whenever the food, like, that's your inventory, right? The goal is to have enough inventory to feed the family or the residents on that property first. And then anything extra, now that's commercial sales, right? So now you're selling to the restaurant, the food truck, farmer's market, CSA, bags or whatever boxes. And that's your inventory. And MLM style is, you actually don't have carry inventory, right? The inventory is like you get through a subscription through your market partner, and the inventory is mailed to you or whatever. Well, in a similar fashion, like you were saying, if somebody's got too much of something this week, well, guarantee somebody else somewhere else on the island is going to have not enough this week. So if we can just, create this local community, this local economy,
isn't that a similar structure to co-ops? Isn't that how a co-op operates? Because a multi-level marketing still has a goal to maximize profits. And, my concern, or what I would see with that structure, is anytime that we're out to maximize profits, there's always an end result of greed. There's always, we just want more, 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 more. And so is that beneficial for the community if everybody's money hungry to maximize profits?
Well, okay. Here's the thing. Okay.
Sorry, that might have opened a can of worms into a whole
No.
conversation.
Well, okay. We want to talk about political economies. We can. I am not a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. I'm the high happy medium, right? So, capitalism, it's in itself is inherently not evil. Profit is not evil. Profit, by definition, by Karl Marx and Engels, is profit. Okay, I'm going to say this one time. Profit is the unpaid wages of the working class. In other words, profit is the unpaid wages of the employees. If your company or your business is making profit and your employees are not getting their fair share of that profit, that is greed. That is evil capitalism. But capitalism in itself is not evil as long as there's profit sharing. And that goes for a farm, that goes for everything. In the capitalist, philosophy, in the capitalist market, businesses and corporations need to function in that fact that profit needs to be shared with all of the stakeholders. All of the employees need to get their fair share of that profit. Then capitalism works.
What's the name of the structure of a business where it's like employee and community owned? Hawaiian Ola, the brewery, the fastest growing brewery in the state, in Kona on Hawaii Island, they are a great example of this. They're looking to build this large production center to support local farmers and have a value-added product, but they are 100% community and employee owned. Is that a dynamic? Is that a realistic dynamic or
that's
approach?
How it should be. I mean, you want to avoid too many chiefs, not enough Indians kind of situation, right? You definitely have to have certain chain of command so that there's a hierarchy of accountability, right, and responsibility. But as long as the employees have a stake, right? That's the other thing, is I'm the type of guy that, first of all, I can't work for somebody that is dumber than me. That's not going to happen. I'll respect that person as an individual, but I cannot take commands and orders from a person who's not making the best decision, right? So for me, I can't work for somebody who's dumber than me. That's why I left the government. That's kidding, kind of. But the other thing too is, like, if I work for a business, like, I'm not going to bust my ass for that business if I'm only getting paid an hourly wage, because me working harder does not increase how much money I'm earning. Even if the business is doing better and better and better because I'm working harder and smarter and better, like, if I'm still getting paid $15 an hour or $20 an hour or whatever, $60 an hour, like, I'm only going to do what I'm going to do. And you can't count on, and I would consider myself a good employee, right? I work hard. I have strong work ethic, strong discipline. I'm Asian. Yeah, my parents taught me A+, no A-, right? B, you're disowned. So like unless our employees are trained that way and taught that way and raised that way, like you're not going to count on them. So the only way to incentivize good employee morale, loyalty, work ethic is to give them a share of the company, right? The success of the company is now, at stake, of their effort and their input and their passion. And if they know that they're going to make a lot more money if they work harder and they do better, then they might show up, and do their best. So yeah, that's a big thing. I'm big on the four agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz, like I'm big on that. Like if we all honor that, I think it kind of greases the wheels and helps the communication channels to be open, and the egos to be leashed, if we all honor the four agreements. So now we're kind of past the time.
Thank you so much, Alex, for being here today. It was such an honor to hear your knowledge and your perspectives and sharing so much insight for our community. I'm hopeful. I feel mobilized after this conversation. How do you feel?
If I didn't have any hope, I wouldn't be doing this. I would completely follow the path of least resistance and sell my soul and sell out like all these other politicians and work a six-figure job in the matrix. But no, I have a lot of hope in this, and I have faith in my community that we're going to get our priorities right, and we are going to follow leaders in the community who embody aloha, and they embody integrity, and they embody values that our culture and our community was built on. And we're not just going to give the reins and the control over to these people with degrees, or these people who represent certain brand names or corporations or even the university or the government to dictate this lifestyle that we are trying to live out here in Hawaii, keeping country, keeping the culture, and keeping it local grown and local made. And the only way to do that is for us to support our own families and support each other, in the community. And like I said before, we don't need them. We don't. It starts at home. It starts with the individual, and it starts with our choices that we make each day. How we spend our money, how we vote with our dollars, and who we support.
It all starts within.
I'm here
right?
for that. Yeah.
You make me want to be here for that. You help. You are very inspiring. I certainly feel honored to know you, and thank you so much for being a catalyst and a pillar in this movement. Our communities are lucky to have people like you. So,
mahalo, right on, Alexis. Alex. I appreciate you.
Mahalo, I appreciate you. Well, let's talk stories soon again. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Do you have a long day ahead of you in the farm?
I do. I do have a partner now, and moving has really not been that stressful. And I have a lot of good friends out here who offered to help me move too. So yeah, that's a great part about farming and being a part of the community, is that the community shows up for you when you show up for them. And I'm grateful, and it is humbling to be embraced. So. Mahalo, Alexis. We'll talk soon, yeah?
Mahalo, Alex. Talk soon. Ahuiho.
Aloha.
We want to thank our guests for their generosity and mana'o. We also want to thank all our ag producers throughout the islands, and especially those we have heard on the podcast, for discussing ways they address the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual dimensions of Hawaii ag production. Each story, each voice contributes to a broader understanding of what it takes to survive and thrive as we feed our communities. Wherever you may find yourself within our island agriculture economies, if you would like to share your story in our podcast, please contact us. Thank you for listening to the Seeds of Wellbeing Voices from the Field podcast, featuring their perspectives of ag producers throughout the Hawaii Islands. If you have found it helpful, please follow, like, and share this episode with others. And if you have any ideas about how we can make it better, please let us know in the comments or use the link on our website. Mahalo for tuning in.